There is no ethical consumption of HBO's Harry Potter series. And for once, I'm actually in full-throated agreement with The Verge on this one. There is no ethical consumption of the upcoming HBO Harry Potter series, albeit for slightly different reasons than what is listed in this article here, as it doesn't really make the argument for why it isn't ethical. It simply just lists J.K. Rowling's greatest hits, including forcing the UK government to recognise that a man in a dress is in fact not a woman. An admission that took several years to extract, mind you. So, what is the point here, then? Obviously, the thrust of this article is simply to say that J.K. Rowling is a TERF, a trans-exclusionary feminist, and therefore she must be evil. Because trans people are at the very top of the progressive pyramid these days, and thus anyone who is against them, or who inconveniences them in any way, like, barring them from women's toilets, for example, must be a mean old grumpy puss. Okie dokie then. But I have a different view on this. There is no ethical consumption of the HBO series because if this is a hit, and there is some possibility of that, although I think it is vanishingly small, if it is, it might open the door for more nonsense like this. See, right now, and I'm working on a video on this particular topic as well, I feel as if we have just very recently had a turning point in demoralization, in the greyification, the sloppification, and the shittification of entertainment in general, which was for years a tool used by progressives and political advocacies and agents within the entertainment industry specifically to try and break down your resistance to their political agenda. This has not only failed, which it did a good 2 or so years ago, but the internet has now fully and finally thrown off the shackles of demoralization. Again, a topic I'll expand upon at greater length at a later date. But the companies are now teetering on the edge of whether or not to continue in the same direction, whether or not to have a complete 180, or whether or not to kind of do a soft turn. Most of the companies are currently in the middle of a soft turn, finally realizing that, okay, what we're doing isn't working. In fact, the exact opposite of what we are doing appears to be working, with the recent success of Project Hail Mary being an excellent example of that. But assuming that we get a successful Harry Potter show, which there is some suggesting that we might, even though, well, here's the thing. The success of a Harry Potter TV show relies primarily on the normie audience turning up to see it, and a lot of the normie audience have gone a little bit insane over the years, and those who aren't insane are heavily affected by the insanity of the other portion of the fandom. Bearing in mind here, Harry Potter fandom is a little bit different from the more insular fandoms of, say, 40k or Star Wars, who began as niche entities and then grew up in geekdom and nerd circles, famously rather insular because, well, if we weren't, we'd get bullied a lot. Whereas the Harry Potter fandom was one of the first ones to actually emerge in an era of general acceptance of these kinds of hobbies, and Harry Potter in and of itself became a cultural phenomenon, in large part, by the way, due to its appeal to women and being written by a woman, thereby granting it significantly greater societal appeal and acceptance than, well, anything we had, up until the modern age, that is. Yes, in fact. But the normie audience is a bit more diffuse than the usual fandom. However, they are still quite tucked into the political realities of the series and their authors, often not by choice, mind you, but by force, as the left has spent a very long time harping on this particular fiddle over and over and over again, attempting to make J.K. Rowling seem like the worst person in existence. And don't get me wrong here, J.K. Rowling is a feminist extremist, okay? She's no friend to our movement either, but she is certainly an even greater foe to their movement, and is pretty much the sole singular remaining feminist fighting in the progressive civil war, all of the others having been swept underneath the carpet by now, either cancelled or subsumed in the trans-exclusionary variant of feminism, because, you know, arguing for women's rights include arguing for men that like to dress up in women's clothing. We live in weird times, what can I say? So a lot of this normie audience will actually have been poisoned by this particular discourse, or at the very least, they will be reluctant to speaking openly in favor of Harry Potter or its author. So the question then remains, how much of the normie audience will secretly, and with just a pinch of shame, still go and watch the HBO TV series? Personally, I think it's probably going to be a relatively small percentage overall, and the internet at large is vehemently against this thing, as I believe many of you out there, many of the content creators too, have kind of sniffed out that this is probably going to be one of, if not the decisive battle in the future of the culture war. Now, we've already pretty much turned the corner. We are winning and will continue to do so, but this, I believe, will determine the speed at which we win, and whether or not we will get something like this dragged out as well. As I guarantee you, there is a thirst in the industry right now for a recreation of the Lord of the Rings success, and there are going to be quite a lot of people that think they can do it justice. Stephen Colbert, incidentally, is one of them, but he's not one of the ones who can actually do it. And the temptation to begin remastering something that was such a success, particularly in an era where people will be crying out for conservative entertainment, it is going to be a near overwhelming temptation, but we cannot give in to it yet. First and foremost, because nobody really believes that anybody is going to create a Lord of the Rings entry superior to the movies. Now, we can discuss at length the various shortcomings of the trilogy. We can. There are definitely things they've skipped. Like, for example, Dol Amroth is a perfect version of that, as Dol Amroth in the books had a significantly larger play upon the war overall, and the Swan Knights are some of the coolest heavy cavalry in fantasy in total, so their complete rejection from the movies is an annoying oversight. But the thing is also, those are already very long movies, and would we really be served by adding in another 30 minutes to The Return of the King to focus in on Dol Amroth? Maybe, maybe not. In all due reality, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is about as close to perfect as we are ever likely to come, and the idea that we will be able to do better today is quite frankly fucking ludicrous. We will only do as well as absolute best, that's a 0.1% chance, or we will do significantly worse, as demonstrated by the Rings of Power. So, what we need here is a genuine rallying against Harry Potter and the HBO show. This needs to be a flop on the levels of Rings of Power, The Acolyte, and Starfleet Academy to avoid precisely this, to discourage the industry from any thoughts of remastering such successful franchises for another good 2 to 3 years at least, until the people who might be able to do it justice have been able to be reabsorbed into the industry via the new hiring practices, which I guarantee you are focusing a lot more on straight white males than per usual. And the HBO show, for once, we have a very good reason to actually make common cause with our opposition. Not in any actual, societal sense, or agreeing with their ideas about this or why they want to boycott it, but in the actions taken. Because if the HBO show can be made a sufficiently large disaster, bearing in mind as well, this is now going to be Paramount Warner Brothers, a company that will be, like $80 billion in debt? They are going to be desperate for income, for money, and are already hiring to try and make sure that happens. Normally, there would be no way you would break the kind of contractual obligations of a show like this. It's going to be ludicrously expensive. But it might be an opportunity to force that through, which would be an enormous signal to the rest of the industry at large. Furthermore, it would also encourage Warner Brothers and Paramount to double down on, well, traditional entertainment, on making more stuff like Hail Mary, on even going back in time and looking at the now huge roster of entertainment and characters they have, with proven sales record, and go, how about we just go back to basics instead? And it will certainly be a resounding reminder as well that progressivism does not sell, that this, the grey slopification of everything and anything, does not sell. It is our opportunity to strike at what will now be the single largest entertainment conglomerate on the fucking planet when it is at its weakest. Harry Potter's HBO should therefore be mocked roundly and openly. It should be covered vociferously, unless it actually proves to be good, in which case it should be completely and utterly ignored. But somehow, I doubt that's going to be the case. And this may seem somewhat cynical. After all, back in the day we were thinking to ourselves, but if it's good, that's great. And to an extent, kind of yes, but man, if this proves to be the bomb, it's very likely to be, mind you, as well, judging by the casting decisions, the general idea of going, hey, we have a world filled with magical wonder. How about we make it grey and dull? Yeah, this probably isn't going to require a whole lot of effort to spin in a negative direction, shall we say. But this is genuinely so an opportunity to send a resounding message throughout the entirety of the entertainment industry, to at the very least delay the unending hunger of reboots until we might be in a position to do them well. Optimistic, mayhaps, but this is a moment for genuine strategic advantage to be seized, so bear that in mind when you see articles like this, and maybe you'll agree. Maybe not with the reasons, but with the end goal. Oh, I am all for it. Until next time, I'm in Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see all of you again soon. Till then, have a good day.